Hey, what's going on, guys? Fizz here at long last. It's been quite a while since I've made a video. So first and foremost, let me get this out of the way before I do anything, even the map showcase. This character is called Physics in-game POV. I'm halfway through level 97, and this is a softcore trade character. So yeah, this is my first time venturing outside of HCSF for multiple reasons. My performance this entire league, I was one of the people that got hit really hard by performance. The game was basically unplayable for me. It still pretty much is, as you may even see in this showcase, depending on how bad the map is. But there are times where I'm like literally just playing the game on single-digit FPS, and the game crashes all the time, and it's kind of crap. It's not as bad as it was at the start, but basically I started with the Merry Fizmas like private league, and we just did like software instead this time because of all the issues people were having with performance. And then I really wasn't playing the game at all. It was I got bored and I didn't want to do anything. But ToTA was a relatively good league, you know, despite all the other issues. The league mechanic was kind of fun, and some of the changes they made were kind of fun as well. My biggest reasoning for going to trade was actually to use this sword, because this sword was one of the most exciting things for me that I've seen in PoE in a while. I just really wanted to make a build with the sword. So I was like, whatever, I'll transfer to a trade and I'll play around. I'll make a little build with the sword, hence in-game PoE. And I'll see how it goes. This has kind of led me down this really weird journey with PoE where like I've only ever played HSF. I'm now playing software trade for like 2 weeks or so now, and it is a now more than ever. I've always held this opinion, but now I actually have experienced both. They are like completely different games. Like they're very different. So I'm just gonna throw in a T16 Crimson Temple here. Temp chains, PDR, 100%, 109% Physics Fire, suppress, and accuracy. And then we'll just run through here real quick so you can see what the build is. So it's Rakiata's. I was really excited to make a build for this, but this is not a Rakiata build that you probably have seen at all. I don't think anybody has done this. This is Infernal Blow Rakiata's. I have used this character to farm basically everything. It got all of my Void Stones completely fine, no issues at all. I also have been using this character to farm 100% Deli. Now, one issue that I have had is really kind of a very satisfying clear, by the way. You swing once and you will just wipe like screens at a time. The interactions are pretty neat here too, on everything going on. But shoot, I don't remember what I was saying. Farmed 100% Deli. Oh, but my problem with this is I don't really understand the concept of budget for Trade League, right? I've never played it before, and everything that I've ever done is HSF. I've always self-farmed everything. So the concept of like pricing and what is too much for like the average player is totally lost on me, and I have no way to gauge that. So if I do more of these in the future, then that'll kind of be up in the air. I'm not sure, because I tend to just play things until, you know, they're fully juiced and stuff. Looking at some of the like there's like being out of touch, and then there's like being out of touch, and some people in my Twitch chat were going through and like looking up gear that some of my HCSF characters had in past leagues and looking at the price of it in trade, and it was like, wow. It really put stuff into perspective on, like, sometimes, you know, people come into my build help channel and they're like, you see how it like curves around the corner and just destroys everything. It's so satisfying. You know, I can't craft this. Do you have any advice or whatever? And I'm like, dude, just throw a few essences and a few harvests on it, you'll get it no problem. But then like stuff that I think of like that, right? Like I look at it in trade and it's selling for multiple divines for a piece of gear that I, in SSF, with no hesitation, would instantly roll over and not even think about, but it sells for multiple divines in trade. It's crazy, like the difference. Getting sidetracked in the map and talking. Anyway, that's pretty decent showcase. So this character has completed Wave 30 Simulacrum. This character has farmed 100% Delirious maps. I just recently swapped off the Delirium Orb juicing strat to doing the Harvey strat, just because following the Abyss cracks around was pissing me off. But all in all, it's pretty whatever. I think right now the character is like roughly 50 divines, but most of it is like very big ticket pieces that you don't need, that are kind of overkill. All you really need to get this character online is the sword and a heat shiver, and that's basically it. The other things that you would pretty much want are Perseverance and Taming. These are also very, very cheap items. Now I have a perfect Taming, but this is pretty expensive. A perfect Taming right now is like 5 divines. A normal Taming is, you know, like a few chaos or whatever. Like, they're very cheap. I don't even have a perfect Perseverance. I just grabbed a random one, and this is like a 1C item, right? Rakiatas right now is like 2 divs or whatever. Like, these should all be very attainable. A lot of the gear, the expenses come from like an Alls, a Forbidden Flesh, Forbidden Flame, a good Watcher's Eye, and a well-rolled Cluster Jewel. Like, that's most of what the investment is. And then some of the gear. Like, you don't need like perfect T1 spell suppression rolls on every piece of gear to play the build at all. You really don't. So I'll kind of get into it here. I ended up making, so like I started this character, right? So never having played trade before. I started with a POB of what my base character was going to be. And then I started the character, transferred to trade, got my Rakiatas, and then as I played and like experienced more of what like infinite resources I can actually do for a build, there's now like 11 POBs of different stages that I went through, continually building onto the build. And now this build, actually, I haven't even played this build for quite a while, actually. I haven't played this build for like the past week. I've made 2 builds since then. I just didn't know how to like make a build video for such a weird, to me, a very weird thing. Like, it's not like an SSF progression where like I'm starting here and this is my progression through like campaign and early maps, and then like yellow to red maps, and then bossing. Like, that's typically the, you know, that's typically the evolution and the progression track I have in SSF and the gear that I craft along the way. It's like trades, you just kind of have everything, you know, and then you got to decide what you want to do from that point onward, because every character I've made thus far just kind of starts in T16s, which is really weird. Like, I kill Katava, I'm like level 65, and then I just go into T16 maps, and that's silly to me. For anybody wondering, in my HC audience, is this playable in HC? Yes, it is. There are a few liberties I took to make this more SC friendly for just more damage, because I'm addicted to POB damage numbers now. Basically, All's Uprising. The original POB had Eternal Damnation here, as you would do in hardcore. It like doubles your EHP values. Use that instead of All's. I dropped the Eternal Damnation to use All's and get, you know, 35% more damage, because why not, right? Help with 100% deli farming for sure. But you don't need that at all. You just put an Eternal Damnation in, and you're still rocking plenty of damage. I can't remember what my POB DPS, again, was for this. 24 million is what I'm sitting at right now with the Alls. So if you drop the Alls, you're still doing plenty of damage. And the cool thing is, this build doesn't have any gimmicks. We're not relying on ramping with trauma for 5 years. We're not doing any kind of garbage like that. The biggest reason that Rakiatas was so appealing to me is just treats enemy monster elemental resistance values as inverted. That may sound like whatever, right? But here's the issue. The tankier a monster is, the more damage I deal, which is cool. However, the cool part about this is this disincentivizes you from using curses, which is really good because there's way too much button bloat, in my opinion, in PoE right now, especially if you're playing a melee build. There's a billion little things you got to upkeep, a bunch of little micromanagement things. So right now, like any melee build ever, you have your totems, and that's it. You're done. That's it. There's no curses. There's nothing else. There's nothing else you got to micromanage at all. There's no bullshit. You throw up your totems and you're done. Feels way better than having to mess with everything else. We're using a mark on hit setup to apply Assassin's Mark because it is a crit build. And you may be thinking, what the hell is this build, dude? You're using Infernal Blow with an item that has cold damage and lightning damage on it. I am. However, the tree is quite generic, and you can actually plug in any kind of melee skill you want, and it'll work. I tested Wild Strike. The build actually, for a lot of its lifespan, was Ice Crash, is what I was playing for quite a while. Ice Crash, Flicker Strike, Wild Strike, whatever you want, man. I've put in so many different things, and they work pretty much flawlessly. There are a few minor changes you would need. For something like Flicker Strike, you might want to drop some damage nodes in some spots and take Frenzy Charges instead, as well as instead of only having the Frenzy Charge on hit on marked enemy, you'd want to get the Frenzy Charge on unique hit on the Sword Mastery as well to sustain Frenzy Charges. But I've tested all of these things, and they map all really fast, they're really strong, and they're really good because of the baseline that Rakiatas gives you and how generic the tree is. So that's everything you got going for you there. Now, why Infernal Blow? Well, we're stacking a lot of flat damage, and for anybody who doesn't know, the way Infernal Blow works is you will hit, and every time you hit, you put a debuff on the enemy, right? Now, this doesn't work with multi-strike. Keep in mind, it's the same as like Bone Shatter, how Bone Shatter doesn't stack every hit with trauma, with multi-strike. So basically, every time we hit enemy 6 times and they get 6 stacks to the debuff on them, there will be a big explosion. It deals 66% of the damage per charge, and you're gonna have 6 of them, right? So it's quite a lot of damage. What that means is that this character can very comfortably freeze Uber bosses. Now, typical HCSSF brain, I wanted to make a character that could like all-rounder, even though I had very little faith in this character being able to do Ubers. I'm like a major Slayer hater. Now, I love Slayer as an ascendancy, and for like playing the game, I think it's really fun. But when it comes to bossing on a Slayer, it is like, in my opinion, like the most miserable experience you can have in Path of Exile. Before the build was finished, one of my friends was like, here, dude, I have some frags. Go try Uber Cirrus. Now, keep in mind, the league that Ubers came out, I attempted them, and I did 3 or 4 out of 7. I did them all blind. I think I died on the 4th one, which is Uber Eater. I did them all blind, and then I died to a Uber Eater slam because I didn't know that it was going to be that big. And then I've never really gone back to it. I didn't really find the fights like interesting or fun. They felt more like stat checky than anything else. And then after that, the kind of like things that I tend to like to do is like avoid super meta stuff and try to make like interesting things work that are off meta. And that typically is not conducive to killing Ubers and HCSSF. However, my point is that I've never stepped foot in Uber Cirrus at all because I died before even going to, that was going to be my last attempt because the character that I was doing it on was an RF character, and I had very little faith in killing Uber Cirrus where he has degen puddles all over the floor that turn off regen as killing him on RF. So never stepped in there before, ever. Absolutely 6-portaled myself and got destroyed. On my last portal, I was finally starting to get the mechanics down a decent bit, but it's still like, the issue with like melee and having like uptime and like Slayer anytime your leech gets turned off and your HP just like bottoms out instantly kind of sucks, I'm gonna be honest. So I absolutely mopped the floor with all normal bosses, but Uber bosses are probably going to be like a skill issue type thing. Again, the build has like 30 million DPS almost. So like you could definitely, if you wanted to make Uber bosses easier, maybe even drop the alls and take like an Eternal Damnation instead and just get super tanky. I'm not sure. I haven't really experimented with that that much, but the build can very easily freeze Ubers because of how it works. Anyway, why is freezing Ubers important? Because we're using Heat Shiver, obviously. So we get 1% of cold damage as extra fire damage per 1% chill effect on the enemy. I believe I'm hitting 30% on Ubers. I'd have to double check the POB since, again, it's been a week since I played the build. Either way, it's a very high chill level. And then 100% of cold damage is extra fire damage if they're frozen. This is what we care about. We will be freezing them very comfortably. Like the ailment threshold is like 55 million or something. Uber bosses have like a ailment threshold of like 7 mil or something like that. It's ridiculously overkill. And then obviously that allows us to pair all of this with Trinity, which is a bunch of extra damage, and it gives us Ellie Pen. And while we don't want to reduce resistances with Rakiatas because we're inverting them, Ellie Pen will scale with negative resistances. So Ellie Pen is still a good stat. So that's where we're getting our penetration from via Trinity and also a bunch of more damage. So we're using Heat Shiver paired with Rakiatas to get freezes, and then because Rakiatas also gives us a ton of flat lightning damage, and Infernal Blow will allow us to cause really large hits, that means we also get really big shocks. It's really cool interaction. It's fun. And that's basically the crux of it. The build is also insanely good at clearing because we're using Infernal Blow. Now, if you use Anomalous Infernal Blow, basically, Infernal Blow has another mechanic to it where if a mob dies while they have a debuff on them, they will basically detonate dead. That's all it is. It does 6% of their maximum life as an explosion and the corpse gets destroyed. So we do have corpse removal. And what Anomalous does is it basically has a 20% chance at 20% quality to apply a uncharged debuff whenever the debuff explodes, which basically just means that it can like chain explosions. That's all that means. So like normally you would hit and it would explode, and then that's kind of it. And you would just like pop a group of mobs. But now you hit, it explodes, and then that explosion can put a debuff on the other mobs that are getting exploded on. This sounds a little sus. And then those mobs, if they're dying to the explosion, can then also explode and then spread their explosion onto other monsters near them. Now, we also pair this with, where is it? Herald of Ice. So we get super, super crazy clear. This is also a good damage increase, you know, considering we're stacking flat cold damage. But it is also really nice clear. So this is what makes 80 and 100% deli incredibly comfortable. Even in 80 and 100% deli maps, I swing once and then it just, my game freezes for 2 seconds. And then the next 2 screens just cease to exist. I would show you guys. I mean, I guess I could show you guys real quick.
I can't do this just yet.
I probably have a few like random delis to throw in. So I'll just throw in this random 80 deli real quick, and I'm not going to clear it. I'll just jump in, hop around, and show you guys so that you know that I'm not lying to you. All right. So that's basically the crux of the mechanics and how the build works. It's a crit build. Cold stacking. See, 80% deli, absolutely no problem. Everything explodes. And it scales, the build scales incredibly well with density. So like the more crit resistant, the more density you have, it's still just gonna pop everything, and you're gonna have absolutely no issues. It's like very, very comfortable. Oh, this is a great example, I guess. So super comfy. And basically, the leech on the build is so strong via tattoos that if something doesn't one-shot me, I basically just won't die. So even though the health values might be, you know, relatively low, considering, you know, what you're probably used to seeing on my channel, the build is still incredibly tanky. It's not like, I didn't go like full software on this. Yep, so just absolutely blast, super, super comfortable, no issues. And we'll go hop onto the boss, even though it's 3 of them.
My spirits are spent.
Yeah, and it's pretty whatever, right? So that's an 80% deli. It was out. I didn't really read the mods before I jumped in, but yeah, it handles everything quite well. And again, just to get the build going, you just need Rakiatas. I'm using Taming because Taming is a ton of damage, but it also really helps cap resistances on a build that uses so many uniques, right? Like we're giving up our amulet slot. Whether you use Eternal Damnation for tankiness or you use Alice for damage, you're giving up your amulet slot. You're giving up your helmet slot, and it does give some resistances, but that's kind of all you get from it. And then you give up your belt slot, which again, it gives cold res, but not a lot. So you kind of give up a lot of stuff here. So I guess I'll give a quick overview of the tree and tattoos first. Then I will hop through all the gear and the links, and then I'll end it there. I'll probably put a few different versions of POBs down below. Now, the big thing to get out of the way first and foremost is you do not need a cluster jewel at all to have this set up. I will tell you guys right now something you can do. I'm not sure how much these are. So 1 divine. Okay, so these forbidden flesh jewels that I'm using are about 7 divines total. Get off my screen. How do I close this? Learning to use awakened PoE trade and all this crap is, it's like a caveman trying to learn how to use computers. Okay, so I am using Overwhelm Forbidden Flame Jewel, Forbidden Flesh as well, I guess. And what Overwhelm does is it's basically just the higher base crit. Enemies having less crit strike multi is kind of whatever, because typically if you're running crit strike multi on a map, it's like 180% crit strike multi. Like the crit strike multi values are so high that this doesn't really matter. Like if you don't have reduced damage from crits, you're just gonna get blasted anyway. 10% crit strike multi to per nearby enemy is again kind of useless. It's 10% crit multi in single target scenarios, which is where it's gonna matter the most, which isn't that much. It can help for deli farming though. I'm sure getting 100% extra crit strike multi all the time is a really big damage boost. I haven't POB'd it, but probably pretty nice. But basically it increases the base crit damage of your weapon. to 8% versus the base 5%, which is really nice. It allows us to drop a lot of crit on the tree. However, you do not need to run this jewel. If 7 Divines is out of your budget, what you can do is what I did, and it's run Unstoppable Hero from the champion node, and those are like 80C total when I bought them. And what that does, I have it up on my POB, you guys can't see right now, but it's 20% increased attack speed while fortified, and plus 500 to armor and evasion while fortified, and also stun immunity. So it's a very, very good node. It's what I was using before I grabbed this one, and basically it's a kind of a small difference. So 20% increased attack speed is a ton of attack speed, and then 500 armor and evasion is not only like damage and tankiness, but well, it's damage because of perseverance. So more armor and evasion you get, the more damage you get via the belt. That's how it works. So the node's really nice. Stun immunity is so good, and then the attack speed basically lets you not have this cluster jewel, which is mostly extra leech and attack speed. And the difference is, if you use Unstoppable Hero, you have to take more crit nodes on the tree, and if you use Overwhelm, you can drop some crit on the tree to run a cluster jewel setup that will give you more damage overall. However, the big bonus of Overwhelm is it basically caps your crit all the time. So I'm someone that, like, if I'm going to play a crit build, I need to be more or less 100% crit chance, because in my opinion, it feels terrible relying on things like Brittle or not having capped crit chance, simply because it's the difference between killing everything in 2 hits versus killing everything in 1 hit. I want to hit once and then they die, not I hit once and now I can crit them and then they die on the second hit. Like, the gameplay feel to me is very drastic, and I hate the feeling of that. So that's a personal preference thing. So that's the biggest reason I swapped to Overwhelm. I was using Unstoppable Hero for a while, and you can absolutely do that. What I was running before the cluster drill setup was just basically running Dazzling Strikes. This just gives you so much crit. This is 25% crit chance against blinded enemies, 50% crit strike chance against blinded enemies, and then the mastery is 60% crit strike against blinded enemies. So this is like what, 135% crit chance, which is crazy, and you blind, so it improves your survivability too. Very strong, but again, you have to hit things to blind them, so the 1-2 thing. Now on Infernal Blow, this probably wouldn't be an issue at all. I was actually using, like I said before, Ice Crash when I initially swapped that. You probably wouldn't notice a difference on Infernal Blow because everything dies in 1 hit anyway. But yeah, that's something you can do. Aside from that, we're just running generic strike node, generic sword nodes with the sword mastery for crit chance to get our crit chance cap. Now, notable things that do need to be mentioned. I guess the Watcher's Eye too. I'm running a Watcher's Eye with Onslaught on kill while affected by haste. Doesn't matter. We have perma onslaught versus, via perseverance. All we care about is flat armor while affected by determination, because it's a big defense boost, because we're also running Fizz's Ellie. And then flat cold while affected by hatred. I can't remember how much this was. It was only a few divines. It was very cheap. There are other mods you could do. You could go for a double damage one if you wanted to, but I wanted survivability. So again, whatever you feel like. Whatever you feel like, man. It's a Watcher's Eye. So tattoos. I'm running some to shore up resistances. I am running plenty to shore up attributes, and that's mostly it. One really cool one is I'm running Loyalty Tattoo of Rakiata. What this does is anytime you critical strike a marked unique enemy, so anytime you get to a map boss or you're on a pinnacle boss, you will summon Rakiata. And what she does is, baseline, she gives you 20% increased action speed, which is a ton for like 12 seconds or something. And it does have a really long cooldown. But the important part is that you will get like Giga Juice attack speed for the first 12 seconds of a fight, which allows you to stack your frenzy charges via 10% on hit, and your power charges via Assassin's Mark, giving you a % chance to get a power charge anytime you hit an enemy really fast. So it kind of cuts out that little bit of ramp time to build up your charges at the beginning of a boss fight. And for like map bosses or whatever, it just ensures that you kind of like instantly kill them. Now, if you do face like a Rogue Exile or a Tormented Spirit or something, and you mark them, like if you kill them in 2 hits instead of 1, this will also summon her. But overall, very good node. For giving up 10 dex to have 20% increased action speed whenever I am fighting a unique mob, it's very strong. Aside from that, most of the tattoos are just attributes. You can see that I am just barely above the int requirement of 111, I believe. And then I have a few chaos resistance ones. I actually don't have cap chaos resistance because, again, I was using Eternal Damnation before, and, you know, I'm 11% short, so, you know, that's where the rest of it was coming from, but 67% is fine. And the big one that probably should be noted is Tattoo of the Katava Makanga. Interesting name. You never said that out loud before. So basically, you need to have 7 adjacent skills. This was really the only place I could put it on the tree, and it's actually quite high value. So our 7 adjacents, we already take Call to Arms. We already have our 2 travel nodes here. We already are taking the life node here. That means we had to take 3 additional nodes to make this work. Now, Mace node, completely dead node. However, Warcry duration and buff effect is good. So Ancestral Cry gives you flat armor. More duration on the flat armor and a little bit of extra flat armor is not useless. It's not the most efficient node ever, but for what we're getting from the tattoo, it's not, you know, it's not mace damage on a sword build, right? And then the other one is pretty good because it's +1 max fortification, you know, 1% less damage taken. Could be worse. So this is where we're putting our tattoo, and it's 8%, 80% increase maximum total life recovery per second from leech. Now, that's really good. So you just pair that with a normal leech node, either Hematophagy or Vitality Void. If you don't have Mana Leech from some other source, like a cluster node, this one, then you'll want to go Vitality Void. Hematophagy is just, basically just damage. Vitality Void will give you even more leech, I'm pretty sure. I just wanted the damage, so I went Hematophagy instead. That's really all there is to it. And I already had Mana Leech sorted. And then, you know, the Leech Mastery for even more increased maximum total is really good. So this is 10% plus 25% is 35. And then we get the 80% here. And then obviously we're running Vol Pact, and then Slayer gets, 100% max baseline, and then, you know, Vol Pact doubles all that. If you go Vitality Void, this has 15% versus Hematophagy's 10%. So you would be getting a little bit more. However, again, Hematophagy has the 40% increased damage. So I just greeted for damage. Aside from that, I think that's basically everything on the tree. The rest is just kind of straightforward. The other thing I should say is Cold Mastery. Enemies permanently take 5% increased damage for each second they've been frozen by you, up to a maximum of 50%. This is really important. You need to make sure that you can freeze for Heat Shiver without this being stacked. Otherwise, you're massively padding your POB. Luckily, you can freeze Pinnacles no problem with this build on Infernal Blow. I'm pretty sure you could even run like Frostblades and stuff if you wanted. You'd have to make a few changes to the tree since Frostblades has to hit like certain proj speed values for returning proj to maximize on that. Of course, you don't need to use return proj on Frostblades, but it's probably worth, you know, changing the build around a little bit to facilitate that. Anyway, that's mostly everything with the tree, I think. Things like Graceful Assault. Normally, you'd take it up for Onslaught on Kill, but it's really good on Perseverance builds because it gives you just oodles and oodles of Onslaught effect, 60% increased Onslaught effect on a build that has permanent Onslaught, and like 50% increased armor and evasion. It's a bunch of survivability and damage. Now, this is how I'm getting Fortify, Honored Tattoo of the Paw. Basically, this just saves me a few extra passive points. We don't care about someone maybe thinking like, well, you could get Onslaught on hit. I could, but I just get Onslaught from the belt instead. You don't need to run Perseverance in this build, but I did build it from the ground up with the idea of doing Perseverance. I think it's probably one of the better ways to scale it. Normally, Perseverance builds are played only on Champ, but you basically have 100% uptime on Fortify anyway. And being incentivized to run Grace and get damage for doing so helps you a lot in mapping. Running a build with really high evasion for general mapping that also has good defenses on top of it makes mapping incredibly comfortable. It's why you're able to pull off things like 100% deli, and you barely ever see my HP move at all. That's basically the whole passive tree. Again, there's a bunch of different things you can do to make stuff work. A lot of it's pretty simple. And now we'll get on to the equipment. So Heat Shiver, I'm running Ancestral Protector Totem, grants 18% increased attack speed while active. Now this absolutely The attack speed is very addictive of when you get Protector up, and then with the Linger Mastery, you'll see that I keep it for a while after it's off screen. So honestly, the way that I tend to clear maps is I'm just throwing down my Protector Totem every once in a while to constantly have the attack speed up, because it makes such a big difference. You go so much faster. But yeah, you don't need to do that. So my chest piece is Hatred effect. You can run Determ or Grace effect if you would like to as well. And then generic Aura effect. A bunch of Chaos res, Life, Lightning res, Spell Sup, and then Fizz taken the Craft on chest piece. Basically, all that you need on the chest piece is Suppression and Resistances, and then preferably an open prefix for the Craft. Belt, Perseverance, Taming, Alls, or Eternal Damnation. If you were going to use a rare amulet here, Life, Resistances, Attributes, generic stuff, elemental damage with attacks, crit multi if you want damage stats, just super generic, whatever. What the heck? Is my amulet, did I forget to re-anoint my amulet when I change amulets? Oh no, dude, I'm losing so much damage. That reminds me, the anoint that I've been using is Gladiator's Perseverance. It gives you a bunch of attack speed and 40% increased attack damage. It's like a 10% damage boost that I apparently didn't even notice I had on this whole time because I forgot to put it on when I swapped amulets, apparently. Whoopsies. But yeah, you should definitely anoint your amulet with this for sure. It's also incredibly cheap. It's teal, azure, silver. Very, very cheap anoint for a very large damage boost. And the more attack speed, the better. It feels really good. Anyway, on my boots, when a unique enemy is in your presence, I've increased cooldown recovery rate of travel skills, so this can more or less, hopefully in most situations, mean that I can just use Frost Blink all the time instead of Flame Dash, because Frost Blink allows you to have more uptime because it's always instant, so it doesn't interrupt your swing. And then increased action speed is just movement speed and damage. It's Baby Tailwind. Again, I'm running tier 1 Spell Suppression, but you don't have to run these things. Basically, the only important thing is Spell Suppression, preferable, Life, preferable, some form of resistances to help cap your resistances, and then an open prefix for chill immunity. That's really it. Now this ring is going to be very important because you're running Taming in your other slot, so you need to get something with Fractured Int is incredibly cheap. So just get some Int here, and then Life and resistances. Again, if you don't plan on running Eternal Damnation and you're playing softcore or whatever, just get whatever Chaos Res you're comfortable with. Slayer doesn't really have to care that much about Chaos Res in most situations because your Overleech is so ridiculously strong. You could probably have 50 stacks of a juiced ass poison on you and you wouldn't even notice. So, you know, up to you. You'll need an open prefix for the reduced mana cost craft. So my mana cost on Infernal Blow is 5. I have 21 mana. I obviously leech however much mana per second, and then I also regen how much mana per second. You'll have to see if if you're bottoming out your mana or not. That's going to depend on your specific setup, how much mana you have, how much mana you use, etc., etc. And then the Owls is just Hatred has no reservation. You can put anything here. Technically, Determination has no reservation would probably be the best one to use because it gives more flat armor. However, that one is also expensive as hell. This one's super cheap, and then it's not actually bad either because increased evasion is not only tankiness since we're using Grace and hybrid bases, but it's also damage via Perseverance. And then 33 extra dex allows us to run more dex tattoos, so it's not completely bad. And that's pretty much everything on the gear. So the most important thing on the Rakiatas is you want high cold damage. The lightning damage comes secondary. This is not a crazy roll at all. It's got high cold and then middling attack speed and low lightning. This is a very reasonable thing to get, I would think. Now, if you want to spend like, I don't know, let's say like 7 or 8 divines on the sword, instead of like bottom barrel prices, you want as close to max cold as possible and then as close to max attack speed as possible, because the local attack speed on the sword increases the local attack speed of the weapon, whereas all other sources of attack speed you get are going to be global. So the biggest deciding factor on how fast your attack speed is going to be the attack speed roll on the sword first and foremost before anything else. So getting even like 1 to 2% higher on this is going to be a huge deal. You'll notice that, again, super lazy. I've not 30 qualled this or enchanted it because you can get way more attack speed by just 30 qualling this and then enchanting it with Harvest for attack speed per qual. So there's a lot more you can do here to get even more damage. You could scale this build way further than what you've seen in these maps, but as you can see, it already kind of just obliterates everything, so you don't need to. Excuse me. That's just kind of been like the gist of soft perk trade. You can basically handle almost everything straight out of the gate, in my opinion, or in my experience, with the 3 builds that I've made so far. You can just absolutely blast everything in the game, like pretty much as soon as you hit maps, and then you just got to decide how far you want to scale it personally for fun, for the progression aspect, and that's pretty much it. But yeah, I think that's mostly everything. I just need to go over the skill gems, and I think we're about done. I've probably been going for quite a while at this point, so I'll try to be fast. Basically, multi-totem support linked with Phantasmal Ancestral Protector. Again, it's not necessary. It just gives you even more attack speed from the alt wall. Vol Ancestral War Chief. I'm using Vol Ancestral War Chief and Vol Molten Shell. Just damage cooldown and damage reduction cooldown. Blood Rage. Qual is attack speed. Increased crit damage support. Anomalous Infernal Blow for better clear. Awaken added cold damage. Divergent increased crit strikes. Trinity, and Anomalous Inspiration. So Anomalous Inspiration is increased crit chance. I was using this before I took Overwhelm, so I don't think I need this crit chance anymore. You could grab the reduced mana cost one if you wanted as well, but this is better than nothing because like the baseline inspiration qual is like useless. It's duration, and I don't think anybody ever has ran out of duration on an inspiration before. And then Divergent crit strikes. This is actually really important. So this is how you get your power charges while you're clearing. This is going to be pretty important for you to have like a semblance of comfort on the build, because if you don't have this, you're not going to have power charges while clearing. So definitely pick this up first. It's very cheap. Awaken added cold. You don't need to run this if you don't want to. We're not using cold skill. It's just added flat cold damage. If you use close combat instead, it's like a 2% damage difference. This is just more damage, but for starters, you can use close combat if you want. They're very small damage difference between the two. And the helmet, I'm running Grace with Ancestral Cry, Leap Slam, and Anomalous Hatred. Again, I just threw Anomalous in because there's not really much else. This is chill and freeze duration. The 10% freeze duration could matter. Increased effective ailments doesn't do anything for freeze, for heat shiver, if you guys don't know. The only way to increase your threshold is more damage and duration of freeze. So technically the 10% increased duration on Anomalous Hatred does make it easier to hit the threshold if you're struggling to freeze pinnacles. But again, that's kind of a niche issue. In the chest piece, you will need a 5-link for this. Running Molten Shell, a level 1, level 10 setup. Assassin's Mark on hit with life tap. So basically I'm just getting my cast when damage taken Molten Shell and my mark on hit setup connected to the same life tap to save a link. And Determination as the last socket here off by its lonesome. And then Arrogance linked with Precision and Frostblink. Herald of Ice on its own link. And that's all of the links. Basically Precision is extra crit chance and accuracy. You notice that I haven't had to itemize for accuracy at all, and my accuracy is fine. So that also allows me to run the 1% max resistances mastery. So I'm at 78, 77, 77. And yeah, technically in the POB I also have this, so you'd be at 79, 78, 78. But I'm running pretty much all evasion bases. I did forget when I made the POB that Heat Shiver is a pure evasion base, so I got +1 passive point from that. And yeah, that's basically the build. I think that's everything. I hope you guys like this. This is my first time kind of branching out, doing something else. I will say, closing thoughts on software trade. There feels like a little bit of a lack of purpose, I've noticed. That's like a me thing. I definitely feel like I'm fucking cheating, I'll be honest. And aside from that, I do really like that I can sit down, I can spend an hour or two making a POB, and then I can just go do that. And then if I wanted to, I could make a video on that. And it could just be like a 1-day turnover time, you know, to be able to have that pumped out. And that's very different from HC SSF, where I make a POB and then I spend 3 weeks or 2 weeks fleshing the build out and fleshing the POB out and having to farm all that stuff, and that tedium that really gets me. The tedium of HCSSF right now and the restrictiveness of it is like caused me a lot of burnout. And to be honest with you guys, we're not super far off, assuming they don't delay it again, of the PoE 2 beta, which is again going to be the whole game. So PoE 2 effectively is launching very soon at this point. We're talking what, like 9 months or something, roughly. That's pretty soon. So I might just I don't know. Let me know what you guys think of this format, what you guys think of like me doing like more creative builds that are going to be accessible to more people. And we'll just see where it goes. But I might just be jumping around to different game modes and just trying to do whatever and try to have fun and experiment with different stuff before PoE 2 comes around. And I probably won't be spending much time on PoE 1 anymore after that point, right? So a lot of these skills and things and all these interactions and items that will potentially or most likely not exist anymore in PoE 2 at all in any capacity, maybe just try to mess around and do as much fun, different stuff as I can with more resources. I don't know. I don't know really where I'm at with PoE right now. I'm trying to figure it out. So any like feedback you guys have, I would greatly appreciate it. If you guys did like this video or this type of content or these types of builds, let me know. I will try to improve on this in the future, but again, it's the first time I've ever done a trade oriented build and a software oriented build. Like I said before though, I would absolutely play this in hardcore if I decided to play it again. Just a few changes. I would obviously use Eternal Damnation over alls, and then I'd probably drop like maybe I drop the whole cluster setup and just take like more life nodes, to be honest, because 30 mil DPS is pretty fucking overkill for hardcore, let's be honest. And I would just take more life and a little bit more defense on the tree, and that would basically be it. So hope you guys like the video. As always, Discord, join it. YouTube, please subscribe. It lets me know that I'm doing a good job. Twitch, please follow. It lets me know that you care about content on other mediums. And that's pretty much it. I do have a Twitter, but I try not to go on Twitter. It's a very depressing place. Anyway, thanks a bunch. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Maybe see you in the next one. For the next video, I did a variant of, I don't know who originally did this, but it was the I Winner brand thing. Jung made a video on it. I did a Pathfinder version for like perma tankiness, tank all ubers, whatever. It's good at bossing and it does infinity DPS. If you guys want a video on that, let me know. That's everything. Bye. See you in the next one. Bye guys. Hope you liked it. Bye.